Carmen Rodriguez stared at the acceptance letter from the prestigious speech therapy clinic, her hands trembling as she read the cost estimate at the bottom. $12,000 for a comprehensive program. She folded the paper carefully and placed it in the drawer with 17 other similar letters she'd collected over the past year, all offering hope at prices she couldn't afford on her $32,000 annual salary from working double shifts at the diner. 3-year-old Emma sat quietly on the living room floor, arranging her wooden blocks in perfect rows. Other children her age would be chattering about their creations, asking for help, or simply babbling with joy. Emma worked in complete silence, her dark eyes focused with an intensity that both amazed and worried her mother. The pediatrician had used words like developmental delay and selective mutism, but Carmen knew her daughter's mind was sharp. Emma understood everything. She followed complex instructions, solved puzzles meant for older children and her. Drawings showed remarkable detail for her age. The silence hadn't always been complete. Emma had said "mama" at 10 months, right on schedule. She'd even attempted agua when she was thirsty. But somewhere around 18 months, the words stopped coming. Carmen had waited patiently, then anxiously, then desperately. She'd tried everything the internet suggested: reading aloud for hours, playing classical music, limiting screen time, increasing it, changing her diet, adding supplements. Nothing worked. She's just taking her time, well-meaning relatives would say. Einstein didn't speak until he was 4. But Carmen watched other toddlers at the playground, saw how they interacted with their parents, heard their endless streams of questions and observations. Emma would play alongside them, occasionally handing them toys or gesturing toward the swings, but always in silence. The isolation was overwhelming. Playgroups became awkward when other parents would ask about Emma's speech milestones. Carmen started declining invitations rather than endure the pitying looks or unwanted advice. Even grocery shopping became stressful when Emma would point at items she wanted, unable to name them, while other children chattered away in their carts. Financial stress compounded the worry. Carmen worked the early morning shift at Sunrise Diner, then rushed home to spend afternoons with Emma before heading to her evening job cleaning office buildings downtown. The schedule left little time for expensive therapy appointments, even if she could afford them. Her ex-husband Miguel sent sporadic child support payments, but they barely covered Emma's basic needs. Sleep had become elusive. Carmen would lie, awake calculating numbers, how many extra shifts she'd need to work, whether she could sell her car and take the bus, if her sister could help with a loan. She'd researched state assistance programs, but the waiting lists stretched for months. Emma's 3rd birthday had passed with a quiet celebration, marked more by Carmen's tears than joy. The night before the community festival, Carmen had reached her breaking point. Emma had wanted something from the high shelf in the kitchen, pointing repeatedly and making soft grunting sounds. Carmen had guessed wrong 3 times: crackers, juice box, granola bars, each incorrect guess making Emma more frustrated. Finally, Emma had climbed onto a chair herself and retrieved a small photo of Carmen's late mother. She'd handed it to Carmen and pointed to her grandmother's face, then to the bedroom where a larger portrait hung. The gesture was so clear, so communicative, that Carmen had sobbed with frustration. Her daughter had so much to say, but couldn't find the words to say it. That morning, as Carmen watched Emma carefully select her favorite dress, a yellow sundress with tiny butterflies, she'd made a decision. They would go to the community festival at Central Park. Emma loved being outdoors, and maybe being around other families would spark something. Maybe seeing the firefighters and police officers would excite her enough to attempt some words. It was a desperate hope, but Carmen had run out of conventional options. She'd packed Emma's favorite snacks and her comfort blanket, though Emma rarely needed it anymore. The little girl had developed an unusual independence, perhaps born from necessity. She'd learned to communicate her basic needs through an elaborate system of gestures and expressions that only Carmen fully understood. Strangers often thought Emma was shy or stubborn when she wouldn't respond to their questions, not realizing she was doing her best with the tools she had taught. As they walked toward the car, Emma stopped and pointed at a neighbor's dog barking in the distance. She made a soft sound, not quite a word, but closer than she'd come in months. Carmen's heart skipped. "Yes, baby, that's a doggy," she said encouragingly. Emma nodded and took her mother's hand, pulling her toward the car with unusual eagerness. The drive to Central Park was quiet, except for the radio playing softly in the background. Emma watched the city pass by her window, occasionally pointing at things that caught her attention: a hot air balloon in the distance, construction workers, a flock of birds. Carmen found herself talking more than usual, narrating their journey, as if her words might somehow encourage Emma's own. "Look at all the cars going to the festival," she said as they approached the park. "I bet there will be lots of children there today. And police officers with their cars. Remember how you liked the fire truck last year?" Emma turned from the window and looked directly at her mother, something she'd been doing more frequently lately. It was as if she was studying Carmen's face, trying to understand something important. As they parked and walked toward the festival entrance, Emma's pace quickened. Something about the day felt different to Carmen, charged with possibility in a way she hadn't experienced in months. Emma seemed more alert, more present, as if she was preparing for something significant. Carmen didn't know that in just a few minutes, everything would change. She didn't know that her silent daughter was about to find her voice in the most unexpected way imaginable, or that the moment would touch the hearts of millions of strangers across the country. For now, she simply held Emma's small hand and hoped that today would be a good day. Officer Maria Santos had been awake since 4:30 a.m., not because of her alarm, but because Rex had been restless all night. The 3-year-old German shepherd had paced around their small apartment, whining softly and pressing his nose against the window as if anticipating something important. Rex had never behaved this way before a routine community event, and Maria couldn't shake the feeling that her 4-legged partner sensed something she didn't. She'd found Rex at the police academy's K-9 training facility 18 months ago. He'd been returned by 2 previous handlers, not because he lacked skill, but because he possessed an unusual trait that made him difficult to work with in traditional law enforcement. Rex had an uncanny ability to sense emotional distress, particularly in children. During drug searches, he would abandon his task if he detected a frightened child nearby. In crowd control situations, he would break formation to approach crying toddlers. The academy had labeled him too empathetic for standard police work, but Maria saw potential where others saw problems. She'd grown up in East Phoenix, where she'd witnessed firsthand how intimidating police encounters could be for families. Rex's gentle nature could bridge that gap. She'd spent countless hours training him to balance his protective instincts with his natural empathy, creating a canine officer unlike any other in the Phoenix Police Department. Rex's reputation had grown throughout their partnership. He'd helped locate 3 missing children, not through traditional tracking, but by somehow sensing their emotional states and leading search teams to their hiding places. He'd calmed a suicidal teenager on a bridge by simply sitting beside her until crisis counselors arrived. Most memorably, he'd refused to approach a house during a drug raid, circling anxiously until officers discovered a trapped infant in a hidden room filled with smoke. This morning, as Maria loaded their equipment into the patrol car, Rex displayed the same restless behavior he'd shown during those significant cases. His ears were constantly moving, tracking sounds she couldn't hear. His nose worked overtime, testing scents carried on the desert breeze. When she opened the car door, Instead of jumping in immediately, as he usually did, Rex sat and looked directly at her with those intelligent brown eyes that seemed to hold secrets. "What's going on with you today, partner?" she asked, scratching behind his ears. Rex leaned into her touch, but remained alert, his gaze shifting toward Central Park, even though they were still miles away. Maria had learned to trust Rex's instincts completely. If he sensed something was different about today, she would pay attention. The drive to Central Park was unusually quiet. Rex, who normally enjoyed car rides with his head out the window, sat perfectly still in the back seat, facing forward with laser focus. Maria found herself checking the rearview mirror repeatedly, studying his posture. In 18 months of partnership, she'd never seen him this intensely concentrated before an event. Central Park was already bustling with activity when they arrived. Families streamed through the entrance gates, children clutching balloons and racing ahead of their parents. The Phoenix Fire Department had positioned their ladder truck near the main pavilion, firefighters already surrounded by excited kids wanting to climb aboard. Paramedics were demonstrating CPR techniques on practice dummies, while concerned parents took notes. As Maria backed their patrol car into position near the community relations tent, Rex suddenly stood and pressed his face against the window. His tail, which had been still all morning, began a slow, measured wag, not the enthusiastic greeting wag she knew well, but something more purposeful. She followed his gaze across the park and saw dozens of families, but nothing that obviously explained his behavior. "Okay, Rex, showtime," she said, opening his door. Instead of bounding out as he typically did, Rex stepped down carefully and immediately began scanning the crowd. His nose lifted, testing the air currents. Maria had seen this behavior during search and rescue operations when Rex was homing in on a specific scent trail, but they weren't working a case today. The morning progressed normally at first. Children approached their display with the usual mix of excitement and nervousness. Rex performed his standard demonstrations, sitting, staying, showing how he could detect hidden objects. But Maria noticed he was only going through the motions. His attention remained divided, constantly scanning the growing crowd as if searching for someone specific. Around 10:30 a.m., Rex's behavior shifted dramatically. He stood abruptly from his resting position beside their display table, his entire body becoming rigid with attention. A low, soft whine escaped his throat, not distress, but recognition. Maria looked in the direction of his focus and saw a sea of families enjoying the festival. Nothing seemed out of place, but Rex was now trembling slightly with contained energy. "Easy, boy," she murmured, placing a calming hand on his back. Rex barely acknowledged her touch, something unprecedented in their partnership. His eyes were locked on something or someone in the crowd, and every muscle in his powerful frame was coiled with anticipation. Maria had worked with enough K-9 officers to recognize the signs. Rex had found what he'd been searching for, though she had no idea what that might be. She watched as his ears swiveled forward, his tail began that slow, purposeful wag again, and he took 2 small steps forward, then looked back at her as if asking permission. In the distance, she could see a small figure moving through the crowd with unusual determination. A toddler, she realized, walking with the kind of focused intent that was rare in children so young. Other festival goers were beginning to notice too, turning to watch the child's progress through the gathering. Rex's whining became more insistent. He looked from Maria to the approaching figure and back again, his message clear. Something important was about to happen. After 18 months of trusting his instincts, Maria wasn't about to doubt him now. "Okay, partner," she said quietly. "Show me what you see." Rex took 3 measured steps forward and sat in perfect position, his eyes never leaving the approaching toddler. The morning sun cast long shadows across the grass, and Maria felt the strangest sensation that time was slowing down, as if the entire universe was holding its breath for whatever was about to unfold. She had no idea that in the next few minutes, her partner would demonstrate why he'd been called too empathetic for regular police work, and that this perceived weakness would turn out to be his greatest strength. The approaching child would change both their lives in ways Maria couldn't imagine, turning a routine community event into a moment that would inspire millions of people across the country. For now, she simply watched and waited, trusting in the mysterious bond between her remarkable dog and a little girl who was about to find her voice. Emma Rodriguez had been walking for barely 5 minutes when something extraordinary began happening inside her mind. For 3 years, words had felt like butterflies trapped behind glass, beautiful, meaningful, but impossible to release. She could see them, feel them fluttering against the barriers in her thoughts, but they remained locked away, creating a frustration so deep it sometimes made her chest ache with the effort of trying to speak. But today was different. As she wandered through the festival, leaving her mother's conversation behind, Emma felt those invisible barriers beginning to crack. It started as a warm sensation in her chest, spreading upward like honey being poured slowly through her body. The words weren't just trapped anymore. They were moving, shifting, organizing themselves as if preparing for something momentous. She passed a group of firefighters demonstrating their equipment, their voices clear and strong as they explained their tools to fascinated children. Emma paused, tilting her head as she absorbed not just their words, but the cadence, the rhythm of human speech. For the first time in months, she found herself silently moving her lips, mimicking the shape of sounds without making them. Her tongue felt less heavy, more nimble, as if it was remembering its purpose. The crowd parted around her, naturally as she continued walking, though she was unaware of the attention she was drawing. Parents noticed her unusual focus, the way she moved with such determination, despite her small size. Some smiled, assuming she was heading toward her family. Others looked around, wondering where her guardian might be. But Emma had no destination in mind, or so she thought. Something was pulling her forward, a sensation she'd never experienced before. It wasn't physical, but it was as real as gravity. Her feet seemed to know where to go, even though her conscious mind remained focused on the strange awakening happening in her throat and chest. Each step brought a new clarity, as if walking itself was unlocking something that had been dormant inside her. Carmen, still engaged in conversation with other mothers about preschool programs, felt a sudden chill despite the warm Arizona morning. She turned instinctively to check on Emma and felt her heart skip when she saw only empty space where her daughter had been sitting moments before. Panic began to rise, but she forced herself to scan the immediate area methodically. There, about 50 yards away, she spotted the familiar yellow sundress with tiny butterflies. Emma was walking with purpose toward the police display area, her small frame moving through the crowd like she was following an invisible thread. Carmen excused herself from the conversation and began moving after her daughter, but something made her maintain distance. There was something different about Emma's posture, her movement. She wasn't wandering aimlessly, as she sometimes did. She was going somewhere specific. Near the police display. Rex's behavior had intensified to a level that concerned Officer Santos. The German Shepherd was now vibrating with barely contained energy, his entire body focused on the approaching child. His breathing had quickened, and he was making soft sounds she'd never heard before, not whines or whimpers, but something almost like conversation, as if he was trying to communicate across the distance. "Rex, what is it?" Maria whispered, but her partner was beyond responding to commands. Every instinct she'd developed over 18 months of working with him told her to trust what was happening, even though she didn't understand it. Other festival goers were beginning to notice the unusual scene developing. A toddler walking alone with unusual focus, a police dog displaying behavior that seemed almost supernatural in its intensity. Parents began pulling out phones, sensing that something remarkable was about to unfold, though none could have predicted what was coming. Emma was now within 30 feet of Rex, and the sensation in her chest had spread throughout her entire body. The trapped butterflies in her mind were no longer just fluttering. They were organizing, forming words, sentences, thoughts that felt crystal clear for the first time in her life. She could feel individual sounds taking shape on her tongue. TH and onk and U. 3 simple sounds that suddenly felt as natural as breathing. But more than that, she was experiencing something she'd never felt before. The overwhelming need to express gratitude. Not for a toy or food or comfort, but for something deeper. Looking at Rex, who was now sitting perfectly still, but radiating an energy she could somehow perceive, Emma felt a connection that bypassed all her usual communication barriers. This beautiful, gentle creature represented something she couldn't name but desperately needed to acknowledge. Rex had begun the slow, careful movement that Maria recognized from his most important rescues. He rose from his sitting position and took 2 measured steps toward Emma, then sat again, as if he understood that sudden movements might break whatever spell was being woven between them. His tail moved in that slow, purposeful rhythm that meant he was in full working mode. But this wasn't any kind of work Maria had trained him for. The crowd around them had grown quiet, sensing the electricity in the air. Carmen had moved closer, but remained at a distance, her maternal instincts warring with a deeper sense that interfering might prevent something miraculous from happening. She watched her silent daughter and this remarkable dog drawing toward each other like magnets, and felt tears beginning to form before she even understood why. Emma stopped exactly 3 feet from Rex, close enough to see the intelligence in his brown eyes, far enough to maintain the respectful distance that felt somehow important. She had never been this close to a dog before, but fear was completely absent. Instead, she felt a recognition that went beyond species, beyond words, beyond anything her 3-year-old mind could fully comprehend. The butterflies in her mind suddenly stilled, no longer trapped but poised, ready, waiting for the perfect moment to take flight. Emma raised her small hand, extended 1 finger, and pointed directly at Rex. In that gesture, she was acknowledging not just a dog, but a catalyst, a key that was about to unlock everything she'd been holding inside. The morning breeze carried the scent of popcorn and cotton candy, the sound of distant laughter and carnival music. But in the small space between a silent child and an extraordinary dog, the only sound was the collective holding of breath from everyone who sensed they were about to witness something that would change everything. Time seemed suspended, balanced, on the edge of a moment that would divide Emma's life into before and after, silence and speech, isolation and connection. Her lips parted, her tongue moved to the roof of her mouth, and the butterflies prepared to fly free at last. The first sound that escaped Emma's lips wasn't quite a word. It was more like the opening of a door that had been sealed shut for years. A soft TH sound, clear and deliberate, cut through the ambient festival noise like a bell ringing in a cathedral. Everyone within 20 feet felt it rather than heard it. A shift in the atmosphere that made conversations pause mid-sentence and heads turned toward the small figure pointing at the German shepherd. Rex's ears shot forward at the sound, his entire body becoming motionless except for the barely perceptible trembling of anticipation. In 18 months of partnership with Officer Santos, he had never displayed this level of focused intensity. His brown eyes locked onto Emma's face with an expression that seemed almost human in its understanding, as if he knew exactly what was struggling to emerge and was somehow lending her his strength to make it happen. -ANK ... Emma's voice grew stronger with the second syllable, the word taking shape with a clarity that made Carmen's knees nearly buckle. The sound was perfect, not the mumbled approximation she'd heard countless times from other toddlers, but the precise pronunciation of someone who had been listening, learning, and waiting for exactly the right moment to speak. A businessman walking past with his morning coffee stopped so abruptly that the hot liquid sloshed onto his hand. But he barely noticed the burn. A grandmother pushing her grandson in a stroller froze in place, her weathered face breaking into a knowing smile as she recognized something sacred happening before her eyes. Children who had been running and playing moments before seemed drawn by an invisible force to witness what was unfolding. "Thank you." The two words rang out crystal clear, carrying across the park with impossible strength for such a small voice. They weren't spoken to the crowd, to her mother, or even to Officer Santos. They were directed with laser precision at Rex, as if Emma understood that he was the key to everything she had been unable to express for 3 long years. Carmen's hand flew to her mouth, tears streaming down her face before her brain could fully process what had just happened. Those weren't just Emma's first clear words. They were perfect words, grammatically correct, emotionally appropriate, and delivered with the kind of intentionality that speech therapists spend months trying to teach. But more than that, they revealed something profound about her daughter's inner world. Emma had chosen gratitude as her first clear communication. Not a request, not a complaint, but acknowledgement and appreciation. Officer Santos felt her own eyes filling with tears as she watched Rex's reaction to Emma's words. The dog moved slowly, carefully, as if he understood the sacred nature of the moment. He lowered himself into a gentle bow, then rose and took 2 steps forward, closing the distance between them until he was within arm's reach of the little girl. His tail moved in slow, measured sweeps, not the excited wagging of play, but something more ceremonial, more reverent. "Thank you, doggy," Emma repeated, her voice growing stronger with each word. This time, she reached out her small hand and placed it gently on Rex's head. The contact seemed to complete some kind of circuit, because Emma's face lit up with an expression of pure wonder and joy that Carmen had never seen before. It was as if touching Rex had unlocked not just her voice, but her entire capacity for communication. The crowd that had gathered was now substantial, but respectfully quiet. Parents held their own children back, instinctively understanding that they were witnessing something that needed space to unfold naturally. Sarah Chun, a local blogger who had been documenting the festival for her community website, found herself recording with tears streaming down her face, knowing she was capturing something extraordinary, but not yet understanding its full significance. "Good doggy," Emma said, her vocabulary expanding moment by moment as if a floodgate had opened. Rex remained perfectly still, allowing her to stroke his fur, his intelligent eyes never leaving her face. Officer Santos later described the expression on his face as proud, as if he understood exactly what he had accomplished and was savoring the moment of triumph. Emma turned toward the crowd, for the first time seeming to notice the dozens of people who had gathered to watch. Instead of the shyness or fear that Carmen expected, Emma's face showed curious delight. "Hi," she said clearly, waving at the nearest family. The simple greeting sent a ripple of astonished laughter through the gathering, and several people began openly crying at the pure joy of the moment. Carmen finally found her voice, rushing forward, but careful not to startle the magical connection between her daughter and Rex. "Emma, baby, you're talking," she said, kneeling beside her daughter. Emma looked up at her with bright eyes and said something that would later be quoted in newspapers across the country. "Mama, I was always talking. Now you can hear me." The philosophical depth of that statement, coming from a 3-year-old who had been labeled developmentally delayed, sent shockwaves through everyone present. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, a pediatric speech pathologist who happened to be at the festival with her own family, pushed through the crowd and introduced herself to Carmen. "I've been working with children for 25 years, she said, her voice filled with professional amazement, "and I've never witnessed a breakthrough like this. Your daughter's language center was never damaged. It was just waiting for the right catalyst." Rex seemed to understand that his work was done, but he remained close to Emma, as if he knew that this connection they'd forged was permanent. When Emma knelt down to his level and whispered something in his ear that only he could hear, his tail resumed that slow, ceremonial wagging, and he gently licked her cheek in response. Officer Santos found herself struggling to maintain her professional composure as she watched her partner, the dog who had been deemed too empathetic for standard police work, demonstrate exactly why his unique gifts were so valuable. Rex hadn't just helped a child find her voice. He had unlocked a mystery that had been tormenting a family for years. As if to prove that this wasn't just a momentary breakthrough, Emma began talking to everyone around her. She thanked Sarah Chun for taking pictures. She complimented another child's balloon. She asked Officer Santos if Rex was hungry and offered to share her goldfish crackers. Each word came easily, naturally, as if she had simply been waiting her whole life for this moment to begin truly communicating with the world. The transformation was so complete, so immediate, that it seemed almost miraculous. But looking at the profound connection between the little girl and the extraordinary dog who had somehow unlocked her voice, everyone present understood they had witnessed something that transcended normal explanation, a moment where love, understanding, and perfect timing had conspired to create pure magic. Sarah Chun had been running her Phoenix community blog, Desert Voices, for 3 years, documenting local events and celebrating neighborhood heroes. She'd covered hundreds of community gatherings, school fundraisers, and small-town celebrations. But nothing had prepared her for what she'd just witnessed and recorded. Her hands were still shaking as she reviewed the video on her phone, tears blurring her vision as she watched Emma's transformation unfold again in digital replay. The video was remarkable in its simplicity and power. It began with Emma walking purposefully toward Rex, captured her pointing gesture, and then recorded those life-changing words in crystal-clear audio. "Thank you. Thank you, doggy." But it was what happened after that made the footage truly extraordinary. Emma's immediate expansion into natural conversation, her mother's overwhelming joy, and Rex's almost human understanding of what he had accomplished. Sarah's journalism instincts told her this was something special, but her heart told her it was something sacred. She approached Carmen, who was still kneeling beside Emma, and marveling at her daughter's continuous stream of chatter. "Mrs. Rodriguez, I'm Sarah Chun from Desert Voices blog. I recorded what just happened, and I think this story could help a lot of other families going through similar struggles. Would you be comfortable if I shared this?" Carmen looked at her daughter, who was now engaged in animated conversation with Dr. Walsh about Rex's training, using complete sentences and complex thoughts that seemed impossible just 30 minutes earlier. "Will it help other children like Emma?" Carmen asked. When Sarah nodded, Carmen gave her permission with one condition. Any donations or attention should be directed toward helping other families afford speech therapy. Within 15 minutes, Sarah had uploaded the video to her blog with the caption, "3-year-old speaks first clear words to police dog. Phoenix miracle unfolds at community festival." She shared it across her social media platforms, tagging local news stations and parent support groups. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The first share came from Maria Santos' personal Facebook account. The police officer had asked Sarah for the link, wanting to document Rex's most extraordinary moment. "My partner Rex helps a little girl find her voice," she wrote. "This is why I became a police officer, to serve our community in ways we never expect." Within 20 minutes, the Phoenix Police Department's official page had shared Maria's post, and the video began spreading through law enforcement networks across Arizona. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, still processing what she'd witnessed professionally, shared the video to several pediatric speech therapy groups on social media. 25 years in practice, and I've never seen anything like this, she commented. This little girl's breakthrough challenges everything we think we know about selective mutism and developmental delays. Her post caught the attention of the American Speech-Language Hearing Association, whose social media manager immediately recognized the story's potential impact. By noon, the video had been shared 500 times and viewed over 10,000 times. Local Phoenix news station KPNX received dozens of calls from viewers asking about the little girl and the police dog. Assignment editor Rebecca Martinez initially dismissed it as a cute animal story until she watched the footage herself. "Get a crew to Central Park immediately," she told her weekend reporter. "This isn't just cute, this is miraculous." The story's momentum accelerated exponentially when it caught the attention of Upworthy, a platform known for viral feel-good content. Their editor, scrolling through tagged submissions, stopped cold when she saw Emma's transformation. She immediately recognized the story's potential to touch hearts while raising awareness about childhood speech delays. Within 3 hours, Upworthy had contacted Sarah for permission to reshare the video with their 15 million followers. But it was the involvement of celebrities that truly launched the story into the stratosphere. Actress and autism advocate Temple Grandin, known for her work with animals and special needs children, shared the video with a powerful caption. "This is why animals are such incredible healers. This dog accomplished in minutes what sometimes takes years of traditional therapy. Every child deserves a Rex." Ellen DeGeneres' producers spotted the story through their social media monitoring, and within hours, her official Twitter account had shared the video. "This made me ugly cry at 2 p.m. on a Saturday. Emma and Rex, you're invited to the show." The Ellen share alone generated over 100,000 views in the first hour. The hashtag #ThankYouRex began trending organically as people shared their own stories of animals helping children with various challenges. Parents posted videos of their special needs children interacting with therapy dogs, service animals, and family pets. Teachers shared classroom stories about animals breaking through to nonverbal students. Veterinarians and animal trainers contributed professional insights about the human-animal bond. By evening, major news outlets were picking up the story. CNN's weekend team prepared a segment for the following day. Good Morning America's producers sent an email to Carmen requesting an interview. The Today Show's animal expert reached out through the Phoenix Police Department, asking about featuring Rex in an upcoming segment about therapy animals. The international response was equally powerful. BBC News shared the story as an example of innovative approaches to childhood development challenges. Australian morning shows began reaching out for video calls. A dog training facility in Japan shared their own version of Rex's story, describing similar breakthroughs they'd witnessed. But perhaps most meaningful was the response from other families facing similar challenges. Comments poured in from parents around the world, sharing their own stories of silent children, delayed development, and the financial struggles of accessing proper care. Many tagged friends and family members, saying, "This gives me hope for our journey." Carmen's phone, which she'd barely checked all morning, was now buzzing constantly with notifications. Friend requests, interview requests, and most touchingly, personal messages from strangers sharing their own stories and offering encouragement flooded her social media accounts. The Phoenix Children's Hospital reached out offering to provide Emma with comprehensive developmental assessment at no cost. Local businesses began calling, wanting to contribute to what was quickly becoming known as Emma's Fund, the donation account Sarah had helped Carmen set up to help other families access speech therapy services. By Sunday morning, over $15,000 had been donated by complete strangers. Moved by Emma's story, the video's reach extended far beyond entertainment value. Speech therapy clinics reported increased calls from parents inquiring about services. Animal-assisted therapy programs saw spikes in volunteer applications. Most importantly, the story was breaking down stigmas around developmental delays and showing the world that children like Emma weren't broken. They were just waiting for the right key to unlock their potential. As Emma played with Rex in their backyard that evening, chattering constantly about her day and making plans for their next meeting, Carmen watched the view counter on Sarah's video tick past 500,000. Her silent daughter had found her voice, and now the whole world was listening. By Sunday morning, Carmen Rodriguez's life had been turned completely upside down. She woke to find 347 missed calls, 1,847 text messages, and her small apartment's mailbox overflowing with packages and letters from strangers across the country. Emma, oblivious to the chaos swirling around her transformation, sat at the kitchen table chattering happily about her dreams while eating cereal, her constant stream of words still miraculous to Carmen's ears. The first major response came from an unexpected source. Dr. Patricia Morrison, director of the prestigious Morrison Center for Speech and Language Development in Scottsdale, had seen the video while visiting her daughter in California. She immediately called her administrative assistant at home, something she'd never done in 30 years of practice. "Cancel my appointments Monday morning," she said. "We have an emergency case that can't wait." When Dr. Morrison's call came through Carmen's overloaded phone at 7:23 a.m., Carmen almost didn't answer the unknown Arizona number. "Mrs. Rodriguez, I run the largest pediatric speech center in the Southwest. I've watched your daughter's video 17 times, and I've never seen anything like it in 3 decades of practice. I want to offer Emma comprehensive services at no cost. This isn't charity. This is professional obligation. Your daughter is teaching us something new about how children acquire language." The offer was overwhelming, but it was just the beginning. Throughout the morning, similar calls poured in from across the medical community. Dr. Sarah Kim from UCLA's prestigious Autism Research Center offered to fly to Phoenix to assess Emma for a groundbreaking study. The Children's Hospital of Philadelphia's Developmental Pediatrics Department wanted to document Emma's progress for their international journal. Harvard Medical School's speech pathology program asked permission to use Emma's case in their graduate coursework, but the response wasn't limited to medical professionals. Corporate America was taking notice too. Pecco's corporate foundation called offering a $50,000 grant to establish animal-assisted therapy programs in Phoenix schools. The PetSmart Charities Foundation pledged an additional $75,000, specifically for speech therapy programs involving trained dogs. These weren't publicity stunts. The companies had been moved by authentic human connection and wanted to multiply its impact. The toy company's response was particularly touching. Melissa and Doug sent an enormous package of educational toys designed to encourage speech development. Lego contributed sets specifically chosen to promote storytelling and verbal creativity. But the most meaningful gift came from Build-A-Bear Workshop. They created a custom teddy bear that looked exactly like Rex, complete with a Phoenix Police Department uniform, and recorded Emma's voice saying thank you as the bear's personal message. Local Phoenix businesses rallied with extraordinary generosity. Restaurants offered free family meals for a year. The Arizona Science Center provided lifetime family memberships. Phoenix Children's Museum created a special Emma's Corner dedicated to celebrating children who overcome challenges. But the most surprising contribution came from Desert Diamond Casino, which donated $100,000 to establish the Rex and Emma Foundation for animal-assisted therapy research. The entertainment industry's response was swift and heartfelt. Ellen DeGeneres producers called personally, not just requesting an appearance, but offering to cover all travel expenses and provide Emma with a $10,000 donation to her college fund. The Today Show arranged for a video call interview that wouldn't overwhelm the 3-year-old. Disney World sent a formal invitation for the family to visit as VIP guests, with all expenses paid and special arrangements to meet their animal ambassadors. Perhaps, most remarkably, the story had caught the attention of celebrity veterinarian Dr. Evan Onting, whose Instagram following of 2.3 million had seen his emotional post about Rex and Emma. "This is why I became a veterinarian," he wrote. "Animals heal us in ways we don't understand and can't measure." Rex didn't just help Emma speak, he showed her that her voice matters. His post generated 400,000 likes and thousands of comments. Sharing similar stories, the academic response was unprecedented. Arizona State University's School of Social Work proposed a research partnership to study Emma's breakthrough. The University of Arizona's Veterinary College offered to establish a scholarship in Emma's name for students pursuing animal-assisted therapy training. Even international institutions took notice. Oxford University's Animal Behavior Department requested permission to include Emma's case in their comparative psychology curriculum. But the most overwhelming response came from ordinary families facing similar struggles. Letters arrived from parents in every state, many including small donations, $5 here, $20 there, with notes like, "We know what it's like," and for other children like Emma. A mother in Maine sent $50 with a note, "My son didn't speak until he was 5. This gives me hope he'll find his breakthrough too." A grandmother in Texas contributed $100, writing, "My granddaughter has autism, and your Emma's story made us all cry happy tears." The financial response was staggering. What had started as a small community fund had grown to over $400,000 in just 3 days. Carmen found herself working with a lawyer donated by a prominent Phoenix law firm to establish a proper foundation. The Voices for All Children Foundation would provide grants to families who couldn't afford speech therapy, fund research into animal-assisted interventions, and train more dogs like Rex for therapeutic work. Media requests became so overwhelming that the Phoenix Police Department assigned a public relations officer to help manage the attention. Officer Santos and Rex were invited to appear on programs across the country, with each appearance generating more donations and awareness for speech therapy needs. Rex had become more than a police dog. He was now a symbol of hope for families. Everywhere, the response from fellow law enforcement was equally powerful. Police departments from Seattle to Miami shared the video, using it to demonstrate the positive impact officers could have in their communities. K-9 units across the country began training programs specifically for community outreach with children who had special needs. The International Association of Chiefs of Police asked Officer Santos to present at their annual conference about community-oriented policing through animal partnerships. Children's hospitals nationwide reported increased requests for animal-assisted therapy programs. The Pet Partners organization, which trains therapy animals, saw volunteer applications triple in the week following Emma's story. Most importantly, speech therapy clinics across the country reported that parents were calling with renewed hope, many specifically mentioning Emma's breakthrough as inspiration to seek help for their own children. As Carmen tucked Emma into bed Sunday night, listening to her daughter's evening prayers that now included lengthy thanks for Rex and Officer Maria and all the nice people, she reflected on how quickly their world had expanded. 3 days ago, Emma had never spoken clearly. Now she was, inspiring millions of people around the world, and her voice was literally changing lives. The little girl who had been silent for 3 years had become the loudest advocate for children who couldn't yet speak for themselves. Emma Rodriguez burst through the front door of her apartment, her backpack bouncing against her small frame as she launched into an animated description of her day. "Mama, guess what happened at school today? Mrs. Peterson said I read the whole book out loud better than any kid in my class. And Tommy Chun asked me to be his partner for the science project because he said I explained things really good. And oh, the therapy dog Max came to visit, and he remembered me from last time, and..." Carmen smiled as she watched her daughter's transformation continue to unfold daily. 6 months had passed since that miraculous morning at Central Park, and Emma's development had exceeded every professional prediction. Her vocabulary had exploded from those first clear words to over 1,200 distinct words that she used in complex, grammatically sophisticated sentences. But more than the quantity of words, it was the quality of Emma's communication that astounded everyone who worked with her. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, the speech pathologist who had witnessed Emma's breakthrough, now worked with her twice weekly through a donated services program that had emerged from the viral story. "Emma doesn't just speak now," Dr. Walsh explained to a room full of graduate students who had come to observe one of Emma's sessions. "She communicates with an emotional intelligence and verbal complexity that suggests her brain was always processing language at an advanced level. She was never delayed. She was simply waiting for the right catalyst to unlock her full potential." The sessions themselves had become legendary in speech therapy circles. Emma would arrive each Tuesday and Thursday morning, chattering excitedly about her adventures with Rex, whom she now visited weekly at the police station. She had developed her own unique way of describing feelings and experiences that often left Dr. Walsh scrambling to take notes on Emma's innovative language constructions. "Yesterday, Rex looked happy-sad," Emma explained during one session, describing the dog's demeanor after a difficult day. "You know, like when you smile, but your eyes are tired? That's happy-sad." Dr. Walsh realized Emma had independently developed a sophisticated emotional vocabulary that many adults never master. The specialized preschool program Emma now attended, made possible through the foundation donations, had become a model for inclusive education nationwide. Sunshine Academy had been specifically chosen for its innovative approach to children with diverse learning needs. Emma thrived in the environment, quickly becoming a leader among her peers and displaying remarkable empathy for other children facing their own challenges. "Emma has become our little ambassador," explained Principal Sandra Martinez. "When new children arrive who are shy or nonverbal, Emma naturally gravitates toward them. She seems to understand their silence in a way that's almost mystical. Just last week, she helped a little boy named Marcus say his first word at school. She sat with him during snack time and just talked to him like they were old friends until he finally asked for more crackers." Carmen's life had transformed as dramatically as Emma's. The overwhelming response to their story had enabled her to reduce her work schedule from 2 jobs to 1, allowing her to be present for Emma's rapid development. She had been hired as the Community Outreach Coordinator for the Voices for All Children Foundation, helping other families navigate the complex world of speech therapy services and funding. 6 months ago, I was working 16-hour days just to make ends meet, and Emma wasn't speaking at all, Carmen reflected during a foundation board meeting. "Now I get to help dozens of families every week find hope and resources for their children." Emma's voice didn't just change our lives, it's changing the entire conversation around childhood communication challenges. The weekly visits to see Rex had become the highlight of Emma's routine. Every Wednesday afternoon, Carmen would drive to the Phoenix Police Department, where Officer Santos would be waiting with Rex for their special visitor. These sessions had evolved into something far beyond a simple friendship between a child and a dog. They had become therapeutic encounters that continued to unlock new aspects of Emma's personality. "Rex, I learned about hurricanes today," Emma would announce, launching into detailed explanations of weather patterns that impressed the meteorologically trained officers. Rex would listen with perfect attention, occasionally tilting his head or offering a gentle nudge when Emma paused for breath. Officer Santos often recorded these conversations, not for publicity, but because they provided insights into childhood development that researchers found invaluable. Rex himself had undergone his own transformation. The dog who had once been considered too empathetic for traditional police work had found his true calling. The Phoenix Police Department had officially redesignated him as their first community therapy K-9, a position that allowed him to work with children throughout the city while maintaining his law enforcement credentials. Rex now visits 3 schools per week, 2 children's hospitals monthly, and responds to calls involving traumatized children, Officer Santos explained to a national conference of police chiefs. His success with Emma opened everyone's eyes to the therapeutic potential of properly trained police dogs. We've received requests from departments across the country wanting to establish similar programs. The ripple effects of Emma's breakthrough had reached far beyond Phoenix. Dr. Patricia Morrison's research center had documented 17 similar cases of nonverbal children experiencing traumatic breakthroughs after interactions with specially trained dogs. The preliminary findings suggested that animal-assisted speech therapy might be effective for a much broader range of communication disorders than previously understood. Emma's emotional development had been equally remarkable. She had developed a profound sense of empathy and social responsibility that seemed far beyond her 4 years. She regularly asked to donate her allowance to help other kids who can't talk yet, and had become a passionate advocate for including animals in education and therapy. "I want to be a police officer like Officer Maria when I grow up," Emma announced during a career day presentation at her preschool. "But I also want to be a doctor for kids who can't talk, and maybe a dog trainer too, and a teacher, and maybe someone who writes books about dogs helping people." Her ambitious career plans drew laughter from the adults, but her teachers recognized the sophisticated thinking behind her aspirations. Perhaps most remarkably, Emma had begun expressing curiosity about her own journey. She would ask Carmen detailed questions about the time before I could talk, and seemed to understand that her transformation was unusual and significant. "Mama, do you think Rex knew I had words inside me all along?" she asked one evening before bed. "I think he saw my words even when they were hiding." As Carmen tucked Emma into bed 6 months after that life-changing morning, listening to her daughter's detailed prayers that now included gratitude for Rex and all the dogs helping other kids find their voices, she marveled at the exponential nature of transformation. Emma hadn't just learned to speak, she had become a voice for countless other children, still waiting for their breakthrough moment. The morning of August 23, 2026, dawned crisp and clear in Phoenix, with the desert air carrying promises of celebration. Emma Rodriguez, now 4 years old and bubbling with anticipation, stood in front of her bedroom mirror practicing the speech she had been working on for weeks. "Good morning, everyone," she began, her voice clear and confident. "My name is Emma Rodriguez, and exactly 1 year ago, I said my first clear words to a very special dog named Rex. Today, I want to tell you about the magic that happens when someone believes in you before you even believe in yourself." Carmen watched from the doorway, tears already forming as she listened to her daughter's rehearsal. The transformation over the past year had been nothing short of miraculous, but it was moments like these watching Emma prepare to address hundreds of people with the same confidence she once reserved for silent play that truly captured the magnitude of their journey. Central Park had been transformed for the first annual Voices for All Children Festival. What had started as a community celebration had evolved into a national event, drawing families from across the country. Banners reading "Every Voice Matters" and "Thank You Rex" fluttered in the morning breeze. The festival featured booths from speech therapy organizations, animal-assisted therapy programs, and research institutions, all inspired by Emma's breakthrough story. Dr. Jennifer Walsh arrived early, bringing with her a delegation of speech pathologists from around the world who had traveled to Phoenix specifically to meet Emma and learn about her unprecedented recovery. In 30 years of practice, Dr. Walsh told the assembled professionals, Emma has taught me more about the resilience of the human spirit and the power of connection than all my textbooks combined. The media presence was substantial, but respectful. Major networks had sent teams, but they had agreed to Carmen's conditions. The focus would remain on celebrating progress and raising awareness for children still seeking their voices. CNN's medical correspondent, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, had flown in to document not just Emma's story, but the broader implications of animal-assisted therapy research that had emerged from her. Breakthrough Officer Maria Santos arrived with Rex at 9 m sharp, both looking polished and professional, but unable to contain their excitement. Rex wore a special ceremonial collar, a gift from the Phoenix Police Department, engraved with Community Hero and adorned with a small medal from the International Association of Police Chiefs. His transformation from too empathetic police dog to nationally recognized therapy pioneer had become a case study in innovative law enforcement community relations. Rex has been different all morning, Officer Santos confided to Carmen as they prepared for the ceremony. He keeps looking toward the stage area like he knows something important is happening today. I swear this dog understands anniversaries. As if to prove her point, Rex's attention immediately focused on Emma when she appeared in her special dress, a yellow sundress with tiny butterflies, identical to the one she had worn exactly 1 year earlier. The crowd began gathering at 10 a.m., with families arriving from as far away as Maine and California. Many were parents of children who had experienced their own breakthroughs inspired by Emma's story. Others were speech therapists, researchers, and animal trainers who had implemented programs based on the Phoenix model that had emerged from Emma and Rex's connection. At 11 a.m., exactly 1 year to the minute from Emma's first words, the ceremony began. Phoenix Mayor Kate Gallego introduced the event, declaring August 23rd as Voices for All Children Day in the city of Phoenix. She presented Rex with a key to the city, an honor the dog accepted with dignified tail wagging, while children in the audience giggled at his apparent understanding of the ceremony's significance. But the moment everyone had been waiting for came when Emma stepped up to the microphone. The 4-year-old, wearing a child-sized police cap that Officer Santos had given her, looked out at the crowd of hundreds with remarkable composure. The same park where she had been silent for 3 years now felt completely quiet to hear her words. "Good morning, everyone," Emma began, her voice carrying clearly across the park through the sound system. "My name is Emma Rodriguez, and I want to tell you about my friend Rex." She gestured to the German Shepherd, who sat at perfect attention beside the stage. "1 year ago, I had so many words inside me, but they were scared to come out. Rex helped me be brave enough to say thank you, and that opened the door for all my other words to come out and play." The audience was captivated as Emma continued, her speech displaying a sophistication that left the assembled speech pathologists taking mental notes. "I learned that sometimes we need someone to believe in us before we can believe in ourselves. Rex believed I had something important to say, even when I couldn't say anything at all. Now I want to help other kids who have words hiding inside them too." Emma's presentation included a slideshow she had helped create, showing photos of her journey over the past year, pictures of her therapy sessions, her visits with Rex, her new friendships at school, and dozens of letters from other families who had been inspired by her story. "These are my friends from all over the world," she explained, pointing to a map, dotted with pins representing families who had reached out. "We all have different voices, but we all have something important to say." The emotional climax came when Emma presented Rex with a special medal she had designed, herself a heart-shaped token with "My Hero" engraved on one side and "Thank You" on the other. "This is for believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself," she said, carefully placing the medal around Rex's neck. The dog gently licked her cheek in response, the same gesture he had offered during their first meeting, but Emma wasn't finished. In a move that surprised even her mother, she asked for the microphone one more time. "I have one more thing to say," she announced. "Mrs. Martinez, my teacher, taught me about the Pledge of Allegiance, and she said it's about promising to take care of each other. So I want to lead everyone in a special pledge today." Emma's voice rang out strong and clear as she recited her own version. "I pledge to use my voice to help others find theirs. I promise to listen when someone is trying to talk, even if their words come out different than mine. I will remember that every person has something important to say, and I will help them say it. And I will always, always remember to say thank you to the friends who help us grow." The crowd repeated her words, many through tears, as Emma's pledge became an impromptu mission statement for the hundreds of families and professionals present. Local news cameras captured the moment, but more importantly, hearts were changed by the profound wisdom of a 4-year-old who had transformed from silence into one of the most powerful voices for childhood communication advocacy in the country. As the ceremony concluded and families began exploring the festival booths, Emma ran to Rex and threw her arms around his neck. "Thank you, Rex," she whispered, the same words that had started everything. "Thank you for helping me find all my words." Rex's tail wagged slowly, ceremonially, as if he understood that their journey together was far from over. In the background, Carmen watched her daughter, no longer silent, no longer struggling, but now a voice of hope for countless other families, and marveled at how 2 simple words had changed not just their world, but the world itself.